Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my mid-May wrap up. So this is the video where I will be reviewing the books that I read in the first half of May. There will be no monthly reading statistics in this video. All of those will come in the second half of my wrap up at the end of the month. So in May, I have been slumping hard. I believe it is the 16th of May when I'm filming this. I've read 4 things so far. Now my Bookopoli TBR for the month is only 8 books, but I am also participating in the Believe-a-thon. It's not going well for me this month. I'm really just not reading. I spent 5 hours playing Fortnite last night. I'm also focusing on work. My Candle website is currently closed because I had far too many orders than I could cope with in this current moment. So I've closed to do a stock take and clear through orders, and focusing on things like that means that I just have not been reading as much because I do like to read in the morning and in the daytime. When I read at night, my focus is not completely there, so I only get through 40 to 50 pages in a session. So with not being able to read in the morning and the daytime because I'm working a lot more, I'm not getting things read. It's not happening this month. I did debate not doing a mid-month wrap up, but then I thought that I would regret it if I get to the end of the month, and I have actually read quite a bit. So today we will just be talking about the 4 books that I've read so far this month. So getting straight into it, the first book I read in the month of May was actually the first part of a 4-part serial, and that was A Whisper in the Dark by Jessie Elliott and KJ Sutton. KJ Sutton is the author of the Fortune of Swan series, the first 2 books of which are amongst my favourite books of the year so far, and Kelsey did actually send me a review copy of this to share with you guys. Now this is a vampire story. It is an adult or new adult paranormal romance that follows a girl who is a vampire princess. Now in this world, the vampires have shifting eye colours, and sometime around their 23rd birthday they go to bed, and when they wake up their eyes have changed colour, and the colour of their eyes denotes what part of the city they are going to live in. Now this city is some kind of alternate history slash futuristic version of New York, where something happened in the history of this world that made vampires come out on top, and now the city is called New V and ruled by vampires and the Vampire King. So our main character, Charlie Travesty, wakes up on the morning of her awakening, or evening should I say, as she is a vampire, and discovers that her eyes are not the colour that she expected, and this sets off a whole chain of events. Now as this is the first part in a 4-part serial that will eventually make up the size of like a standard novel, there is not too much to go on in this first part, but I do really like the characters in here. I'm interested in the world and also the political structure of this world. I'm also anticipating some romance. The first part, A Whisper in the Dark, is just under 100 pages, and we have had 2 potential love interests introduced. One I do prefer a little more than the other, and if any of you guys have read this, you probably know which one it is. I did give this 3 stars. The only reason for that is that this is just the first 100 pages of what will become a 400-ish page full story. When I read fantasy, I do tend to reserve judgment on the first 100 pages to start off with, just because I feel it is around the page 100-150 mark where things start to get going and you know a lot more about the world and you know what's going on there, and you can start to form your feelings and opinions. Kelsey has also sent me the second part of this story as well, which I'm hoping to be reading very soon because I do want to get back into that world. As I said, I am slumping quite a bit right now, but I did like A Whisper in the Dark, and I definitely anticipate I will end up loving this serial, and it's very possible I will rate the next 3 installments higher than 3. The second book that I read was Burn by Patrick Ness. This was a review copy sent to me by Walker Books, so thank you so much to Walker for that. This is a young adult historical fantasy standalone. The release date for this was the 7th of May, so it is now available, and this is a very weird mix of elements. This book takes place in the 1950s, and we follow a biracial main character and her best friend. This is a world where dragons exist, and the main character's family have hired a dragon to work on their farm, which is something that only the very poor do. Now, dragons in the 1950s, this is rural America as well. It is Washington State, but the main character owns a farm, so it is out in the country. The reason that I wanted to read and review this is pretty much because it had dragons, but also the 1950s setting is very intriguing. So there is another main character as well. That main character is called Malcolm, and he is part of a dragon worshipping cult, and he has been sent on a mission to assassinate somebody. So I don't even really know how to describe this novel because you only start to have any sort of reveals when you're quite a way into it. So saying anything really about the actual plot of this would be a spoiler. There are trigger warnings in here for racism and racial slurs, and also homophobia and homophobic slurs. As I mentioned, this is set in 1950s rural America, so it is accurate to the time period. I don't mind reading things like that in a story like this where it is accurate to the period, but I know that some of you guys really don't like that and some of you guys may be triggered by that, so I did think that I would mention it. Overall, this is a almost contemporary type setting. The racism and the homophobia are not super present in the story, but there is a lot about the main characters and the struggles that they face in their daily lives and how they have to deal with this, tied in with this fantasy plot. I really liked Patrick Ness's writing in this. I thought that it was very atmospheric and I got sucked into this world quite easily. But this book does also deal with different dimensions or mentions of different dimensions, and the thing that I didn't really like about this book is the structure of the plot. It feels like we're working up to something that is going to be the main conflict in this story. However, that does kind of resolve around halfway through the book, and then the book then starts to build again up to what is actually the final conflict in this book. I didn't really love that. I found that I enjoyed the first half of this book a lot more than the second. I did really like the final conflict and I really love the plot twist resolution, and I did enjoy the first half and learning about the characters and what was going on here, but that middle section in between the first conflict and the build up to the first one just felt really slow, and like I was starting a new book and doing this all over again, and that pacing I did just find really disjointed. Aside from that, this story overall is not necessarily for me. It is not my kind of story. It's not the kind of thing that I typically read, and for that reason I did not overwhelmingly love this. I do also think that the plot of this book would be an excellent movie, and I do have a suspicion that if this was made into a movie, it would make a better movie than it makes a book. So I did give this 3 stars. I did like it, but I didn't really love anything about it, and I just think that this book wasn't necessarily for me. Then I read Lifelike by Jay Kristoff. This is Jay Kristoff's first solo sci-fi series. It's young adult and it is also an Anastasia retelling. Now in this book we follow a girl called Eve, her best friend Lemon Fresh, her little robot friend called Cricket, and her robot dog Kaiser in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. We also have another main character called Ezekiel, who we meet just a little way in, who is a lifelike, and a lifelike is a series of androids that were created 2 years before the start of this novel that were designed to be extremely human-like, to the point where you would not be able to tell that they were not human. Now back in the history of this world, this did cause problems because the lifelikes did not like being inferior to humans when they thought and felt and for all other purposes were human. So because of that there was a rebellion, and as a result of that the entire lifelike production was shut down and all of the models were seemingly destroyed. So we follow Eve, who participates in robot wars to win money to buy medicine for her grandfather, who is slowly dying of cancer. One day Eve stumbles across the body of Ezekiel. She thinks he's dead, but he is a lifelike, which means he's pretty much indestructible, and he just pops up back to life and scares everybody half to death. Shortly after that, Eve's grandfather is kidnapped and the whole crew has to come together to save Eve's grandfather and also unravel her past, because she is starting to have some memories of a past that she does not remember because she has previously suffered brain trauma from being shot in the head. So she does have like a robotic eye and a series of memory implants. I gave this 4 stars, but this was only just 4 stars. I was not enjoying this for the longest time. I mentioned that this is set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It reminds me a lot of the Fallout video games, and that setting is just not my favorite. I just don't really love it. So I didn't really enjoy being in this world, especially for the first 100 to 200 pages. Surprisingly, something else that I did not like about this book was Jay Kristoff's writing, and I'd like, if you guys are familiar with my channel, that is going to come as much a surprise to you as it did to me when I started this book. A lot of people who don't like the Nevernight trilogy do say that Jay Kristoff uses a lot of metaphor that doesn't make sense. Now I personally don't mind that and I like it, and I think in Nevernight it does does fit the setting. It's very melodramatic. It's very, I don't want to say gothic, but it very much fits the setting of Nevernight. However, in this book, I felt that those metaphors just really clashed with the setting because they were a little bit too poetic and melodramatic to fit with this harsh scrap heap world. However, after I got past the first 150 to 200 pages, I did really start to get into this story, because one thing that is true across all of J. Christos books that I've read is that he writes really great, really lovable characters. We have great found families in all of his books, and this was no exception. So I really liked all of the characters in here, and I did also really like the plot. I really liked how Anastasia was woven through this, and the one thing that solidified it for me plot-wise is the twist at the end of this book. I did not see it coming. I started to puzzle some things out as we got closer and closer to the end, but it was just very much before. But then just the actual end, the plot twist after the plot twist, completely blew my mind, and now I'm just desperate to read the sequel to this. So I did give this 4 stars. It did only just get 4 stars because I didn't enjoy a lot of the beginning of this book, but the characters and the plot were phenomenal. And then the final book that I read in the first half of May was Malamander by Thomas Taylor. This is also my first and so far only book I've read for Believathon. So this is a children's fantasy / mystery story. I'm not sure which one I would say was dominant in this book, but we follow a boy called Herbie Lemon, who is the lost and founder at the Grand Nautilus Hotel, and together he and a girl he has just met called Violet Palmer start to unravel the legend of the Malamander as they search for clues to what happened to Violet's parents almost 12 years ago. So this takes place in a seaside town called Erie-on-Sea, and one of my favorite things about this book was the setting. I live quite close to the coast, and I have only just moved from a seaside town, so I felt that I perfectly understood the vibe of this town that Thomas Taylor was going for. It describes how it's really busy in summer and then pretty much dead, like a creepy ghost town in winter, which is so true. I also did really enjoy the characters of Herbie and Violet. I liked that there was a little bit of intrigue in here. I liked that it kept me guessing throughout the majority of this book. I didn't really know how the plot was going to resolve. I liked that we had some characters that I was second guessing. I wasn't sure for a little while who the main villain was going to be, and I also really liked the supporting adult characters in here. I also really liked the names actually of the characters in this book, because they do all have seaside related names like Ambergris, Mr. Mollusk, Lady Kraken and things like that, which I did really appreciate. I don't know why, I just thought it was really nice. I do struggle to review children's books a little bit because it has been a little while since I was a kid myself, so I'm not really sure how to put myself in that mindset to review this, but I do think that children would really enjoy this. I think it's a great mystery story. There's quite a few points of action in here. There's a couple of plot twists which are really good. I think it was well written. It definitely kept me engaged in the writing, and as I said, I really loved the setting and I enjoyed most of the characters. So like Lifelike, this one did get 4 stars, but only just. I definitely think that there is a lot of value here, and if you are somebody who reads a lot of children's literature and really enjoys it, I think you may like this one. So that is it for my mid-May wrap up. I'm hoping I can pull it together a little bit before the end of the month and get some books read. I need to be able to focus on reading at night time. I just read so much more in the daytime, you know? It's so much easier to focus, but I find if I start my morning by reading, then I have a really slow, unproductive day, which is something that I can't do right now. But I'm sure I'll figure something out, and if I don't end up reading much in the month of May, then it's not the end of the world. So please let me know if you have read any of the books that I've reviewed for you guys today and what you thought of them. Please also don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.